Hey everyone, welcome back to another episode of Chanel in the City. I am your host, Chanel Omari, and I have such a special guest here with us today. I'm super excited. From her legendary soap opera days to Dallas to Roseanne to being one of the best actresses in the world, please help me welcome my guest, the iconic Morgan Fairchild. How are you today?
I'm good. How are you? How are you faring?
You look stunning. We were talking about how gorgeous you look and how young, forever young and youthful you look. Can you tell us your secret?
Oh, that's very nice of you. I try everything, every cream, every lifter, everything, I've got my new face. I've got everything. I do all the electronic, all the stuff, you're losing battle with gravity, but I keep at it.
I love it. Talk to us about how you're doing during this pandemic. How are you?
I'm doing okay. I know a lot of people aren't. I guess maybe because I'm just such a loner to begin with that I'm not missing it. And also I'm not cooped up in a house with, 6 kids that are trying to do remote learning. So that spares me a bit of that. So I've just always been kind of a loner, and I have a lot of different things I work on all the time. I was working with different Zoom groups and all kinds of different things on the election, and then the second election, and then the Georgia election. It's like it never stopped. And then I just am a voracious reader, and so I read a lot. So that keeps me going, and I go for a walk every day. I'm lucky that I live in California, and I can go out for a walk every day. And you know what I started doing, because so many people, even last March when it first happened, so many people seemed to be very depressed, and it was cold and snowy wherever they were. I started taking pictures of the flowers and the landscape and different things here and posting them to give people a reminder that spring is coming and there is hope in the world and it won't always be this way. And it just got such a nice response. Then I did like Halloween lights in my neighborhood. My neighborhood is one of those neighborhoods that goes nuts for Halloween and Christmas.
That's amazing.
I did my Halloween lights and Christmas lights. And then people were saying, oh my God, it's like so nice to have something normal and, feeling like it's a holiday. And so I just try to do things like that just to cheer people up, to let people know, that there is life out there and that life does go on, maybe not in the way you wanted it right now, but, we'll all get through this. But I always try to point out that the main way we'll all get through this is together, that we really need to pull together, be kind to each other. You never know what somebody else is going through that day. Everybody is stressed. Everybody is feeling scared and stressed and don't know what's going to happen. And so that creates a lot of societal upheaval, but also upheaval at the grocery store or the drugstore line or whatever. And just to be kind to people, don't feel like you got to prove your point. And please wear your mask. I'm always stressing, please wear your mask. Please do your social distancing. Like, I just never go anywhere. I wasn't going out to eat even when we did have outdoor dining open here. But I do try to support my local restaurants by ordering takeout a lot and trying to do the no contact takeout, or like just today I stopped by and they ran food out to the car and stuff like that.
That's
I try to support everybody.
To support small businesses. Actually, on that note, do you have any favorite, because Chanel in the City, we talk about like favorite restaurants, especially during COVID. Do you have any favorite restaurant in your city or New York City that you love to go to or escape to or order from?
Well, when I lived in New York, I always loved Café des Artistes. It was always in my neighborhood because I was always a West Side girl. When I moved there in 72, I always was around Lincoln Center. I'm a ballet nut. And I used to love the Ginger Man there too, but I don't think it's there anymore. And the O'Neill brothers, the O'Neill Balloon and stuff like that when I lived there, because it was great, especially even in the cold, you could run across the street and get something. But love Café des Artistes, love the Plaza. I used to love the Plaza, having tea at the Plaza and feeling so grand.
Yes.
I got thrown out of there one time with Boy George and his friend Marilyn. Came
Oh, how cool is that story?
Improperly dressed. Marilyn had on one of those fur jackets, but no shirt, and got us thrown out of the Palm Court.
Oh my God. That's a great tea time story to share. That's a great, like a story that no one would know about you know?
I'm sure George remembers it.
On that note, it's interesting that you said, that you're a loner, an introvert sometimes, even though you're an extrovert performer. I relate to you a lot. Many people relate to you. When you're a performer, everyone always asks me, how come you're not always on all the time? Well, a lot of performers, I believe, are introverts. Can you talk to us about, especially during the pandemic, how do you stay focused within your art form, within your acting, and how do you cope with mental health with all the noise going on?
It helps me to feel like I'm helping other people. And that's like with posting the flowers, posting the other things. I post occasional videos on Twitter and Instagram, just talking to people. When I see things on Twitter starting to get where people are just angry a lot, I try to always post a video and say, be kind and think about the other person and think about other people. I try not to get too schmaltzy, but also try to just set a good example of thinking about the other person's point of view. I don't have a lot of sympathy if you're not wearing a mask in a drugstore. But I also just think that should be enforced, and it shouldn't be up to me to go over and say anything about it. I hate seeing what's happened with people getting into these fights all the time. Some political, and with the mask, they think it's a political statement. I wanted to be a doctor when I was a kid. And so I've always kept my hand in on a lot of science issues that I care about. And so one of my weird hobbies is emerging viruses and epidemiology. And so I was like at the forefront of the AIDS crisis, because I was suddenly, when Rock Hudson got sick, I'd already been following it since 1980. And when Rock Hudson got sick, suddenly I was the only person they could get to go on Nightline and explain what a retrovirus is and how it works and how you do and don't get it. And suddenly, did the first town hall Nightline ever did, like 5 hours with a bunch of doctors and some Congress people and me. And
so this is like your second pandemic you're surviving. I mean,
yes.
Wow.
But also, I'm the one who was reading all those books like The Great Influenza or The Coming Plague when they first got published 25 years ago.
That's so cool.
And so, but also worked with Dr. Fauci all through the 80s and C. Everett Koop, who was the Surgeon General under Reagan, and worked with all of them on AIDS, testified before Congress to get AIDS funding for research and things, opened the first AIDS Veterans Wing with Mayor Koch in New York. That's how long ago it was. Sorry, it's cold here. I've got a little runny nose today. Trying to educate people, did a ton of stuff, even with Geraldo Rivera, doing interviews, doing MetLife specials on AIDS. I did Barbara Walters specials on AIDS, even into the 90s, and trying to educate people, take the stigma off of the gay community and just get it treated like a regular disease. When I saw this one coming last December, I was starting to see things coming out of China. Not much because it was all being sort of sequestered, but little blips coming out of China. You knew there was another virus out there. You didn't know if it was going to be like last time with SARS, where it kind of petered out. You just didn't know, but I knew there was something new coming. And so I'm one of those idiots who like stocked up on toilet paper and all the stuff like in early February.
So did I. But you're smart to do that because it's not getting any better, and we don't know what's to come. I mean, on that note, it's just incredible how much you've done for the community, for the LGBT community. You've given back. You've done so much for society besides acting and besides telling compelling stories to help us feel less alone. Why do you think your character roles resonate so much with all of us, whether we're women, whether we're gay, whether we're straight? Why do you think people have related to you over these years so much?
Well, that's nice of you to say that they have. I don't know that they have, but that's nice of you.
Can I tell you, everybody was freaking out. And we're going to get to this. you're good because you're starring in Wizard World, the virtual tour, and also fanroomlive.com, which we're going to get to, which is another virtual platform that your fans are going to get to meet you. I can't tell you how many of my gay best guy friends called me and said, you better put me on that VIP list because I love Morgan Fairchild. I will not miss an event with her, a meet. I mean, you are so impactful. And then all my single, friends, my women friends, my girls, they're, everybody loves you. So I think it's so inspiring and incredible that you can impact people, and tell us what inspires you behind that.
Oh, well, thank you. First of all, I discovered young, I started in the theater when I was 10. So I've just been doing this a long time. And I realized right away the way I looked limited me to a certain kind of part. But at one point I got cast in a comedy as a bitch, and I discovered, number one, that I could really do comedy. And number two, that I could play bitches. And then when I first came out to LA, I've been here, I was playing on Search for Tomorrow in New York, came out here. And, when you come out here, it's like starting all over again. They don't care about your resume in New York or anything else. And so I had, like, one of my early auditions, I went over for Chuck Freeze, who was the king of TV movies at that time. And there was a movie he was doing called Initiation of Sarah. And it was like a ripoff of Carrie, which had come out like the year before and was very, very popular. So, and it was all telekinesis. And Kay Lenz, who was the queen of TV movies, was playing the Carrie character. But there were two other women characters. And one was the sister of Carrie, and they're going off to college and she wants to get into a sorority. And the other is the queen bitch of the sorority. And so he had me read for the queen bitch. And I said, he said, you got it. And I said, no. Back then they could actually do that, now I'd have to go through 5 layers of approvals, but back then he could actually do it. And then I said, no, I'd like to read for the sister because she has more gray areas, me being an actor, she has more gray areas. And I think she's more interesting. He says, I want a brunette. I said, but I wear a wig. He says, funny. He looks at me, he says, honey, you haven't been here very long, have you? So I said, no, sir, I haven't. And he said, let me explain something to you. I can find a good ingenue anywhere, but a good bitch is hard to find. And he says, and if the bitch doesn't work, if the bad guy doesn't work, the whole show doesn't work, And, you start thinking about that. If there's not a good antagonist, nothing else works. And so anyway, I did that and I thought, oh, well, I'll do this little thing. It's a little TV movie. Nobody will see it. I'll have a movie credit, it'll be nice. #1 TV movie of the year. Started me on my road to bitchdom. After that, everybody's casting me as bitches.
You know what they say, that psychologically, I read a statistic that most actresses who are casted as playing the ditzy role or the bitch role are the smartest women in the world with the highest IQ. Believe it or not, which is very true about you, very deep.
I'm going to latch on to that. Let's latch on to that.
See?
The thing is, what I did with the bad guy to make it interesting is I made them funny. And so in all of the shows, like in Flamingo Road, I had a 2-hour movie of a Joan Crawford movie, and it was a 2-hour TV movie, and I'm not the Joan Crawford part. And so I'm just the wife of the guy who's in love with the Joan Crawford character. And my only thing is to come between the two star-crossed lovers. But every scene I had, I chew the scenery like nuts. I throw out a lot of ad libs, and I'm a wise ass, and I throw out a lot of ad libs. And I make them funny. They're not written funny, but I take kind of a 2-dimensional character and make them funny. And that's what people like, I think, a lot. It's like when I was doing Mark and Mindy, when I had done Happy Days the year before, and I had gone over to, but everybody on Happy Days was so nice. They're so wonderful. So every time I'd be on the Paramount lot for audition or shoot something else, I'd stop by and say hi. So one day I walk in and Henry Winkler says, hey, do you have to go anywhere? And I said, no. He says, stay and watch this guy work. He's really great. So I thought, okay. So I stayed all afternoon to watch this guy do Happy Days rehearsal, just to stay and tell him that he was a genius. So like 9 months later, I get a call from the agent, and, it's like, okay, well, we have good news and bad news. I said, okay, what's the good news? Well, the good news is you got that TV movie you wanted. I said, oh, great. What's the bad news? Oh, Gary Marshall has this new show and it's all under wraps and nobody knows anything about it. And, they don't want to give you a contract, They don't want to pay you anything other than top a show, and you're making so much more than that now, and they should give you a contract. And we just think you should pass. So I said, well, what's the name of it? And they said, Mark and Mindy. I said, that's Robin Williams' show. And they said, there was a time, who's Robin Williams? I said, Robin Williams is a damn genius. I said, don't tell Gary I'd work for free to work with Robin Williams. So I go over to do the first one, and the show wasn't on the air yet, and they'd only done 2 or 3 of them. And so I went to watch the taping of the one before mine, so I could see what the character relationships were and everything, actor, And so so I'm sitting there, and I watched the taping. They take the dress rehearsal, and they take a break, and we're sitting in the cafeteria, and I can see Robin across the room there with all of his pierced and gelled Topanga Canyon friends, this is like 1978, and everybody with like purple mohawks and everything pierced. I mean, they're looking at me, and I'm thinking, oh God, he's sitting here thinking, what did they send me? Miss White Bread America. But anyway, the next day, we have the read through. It's very funny. Script is very funny. And then we get up and start blocking. And for anybody in the audience who doesn't know what blocking is, that's where you actually get it on its feet, and you decide where you're going to stand and where the camera's going to be and where you're going to stand and how you're going to talk to each other and who's going to move when. Anyway, so during blocking, I started noticing that what would happen is Robin would start off the script, and then he would just go off. And he was so brilliant, such an ad-libber. And so he would just go off and start doing basically his nightclub act and just crazy shit. And so he was going nuts. And so anyway, and everybody would just stand back and watch him go. And then, like, the director, when he could see Robin was starting to run out of material, because Robin would never admit he's running out of material, he would say, well, let's get back to the script. So when I get up there, we start off our scene, and then he throws something weird out. And so I threw something weird out, and he looked at me, and he threw something, and I threw something, and he threw something, and I threw something. And he comes over, and he grabs me, and he throws me in the air, and he says, Mama, you're one of me. and so then we would just ad lib all the time, because I grew up in the theater. I was ad lib with him all the time, and just wherever he wanted to go, that's where we go. So it was great fun doing that first year. I just, I loved it. And a lot of the stuff people really liked about some of our stuff was stuff we just created together out of whole cloth.
Yeah, I was going to say, because any fun stories you could share about him, which you just did, you shared. I mean, any time that you remember with him that you couldn't stop laughing.
Well, there was one day, there were a lot of days you couldn't stop laughing, because Robin, you said about people being off. Robin was never off. If you had Robin one-on-one, Robin was off.
Right.
And he would come over and sit, because he had actually gone to Juilliard with my sister. He and Christopher Reeve were the class behind my sister. So they knew each other, and my sister and I were living together here. So Robin would come over. This is again before the show's even on the air, and sit on our living room floor. And so to say, oh, this is never going to work. People aren't going to like this. I said, Robin, you're going to be massive. It's going to be massive. And then you got to keep your head straight. But it's going to be massive. And but I remember one time, because he was always on. If you had him one-on-one, it was okay. But otherwise he was on. But he loved Jonathan Winters. And so Gary Marshall had gotten Jonathan Winters to come over. Now, this was before Jonathan was on the show. This is the first year. And hide in Robin's trailer. But Robin got there very late, and he was like a little juiced up, and he wouldn't go to the trailer. And he wouldn't go. And everybody all day kept trying to get him to go to the trailer, trying to trick Robin into going out to the trailer, but he wouldn't go. Finally, he goes out there. Jonathan Winters is like asleep in a closet, waiting to jump out at him. And because he wasn't going home a lot, he had this green parrot that he loved. But, parrots are like people. So the parrot's mad at him because he hasn't been coming home. So he'd gone home and gotten the parrot, and he brought it to work. Well, the parrot's mad at him. So it's like dive bombing Robin all day. Nobody else. Up into the rafters of the soundstage and dive bombing Robin to get even with Robin.
That would have been, what a hilarious moment.
Well, he was a very funny guy, and he was so sweet. I mean, everything you think about Robin Williams, he was that. He was a wonderful, down-to-earth, sweet, lovable, brilliant guy. And I remember he asked me to come to his first comedy special. They were taping at one of the clubs there on Sunset, and he asked me to come, and so I come for the taping. So they were doing 2. So I went, and he wasn't getting any laughs, and it wasn't working. And I went backstage between the two shows, and he was just frantic. He said, Morgan, it's not working. It's not working. It's not working. They don't like me. I said, no, Robin, they love you. Here's what you're doing. Because you are speeding so fast, because you are so fast, you're not taking them with you. You're going too fast and you're skipping over your punchline. I said, slow down for the mortal people here trying to keep up with your brain, and just slow down and hit your punchlines. You're just speeding through everything. And, you know, you're getting it, but they're not with you yet. You got to let them catch up to you. So the second show went much better. I'm sure they used a lot more of that show for the special than for their first show.
That's amazing. I mean, you both incredible to see, you know, Mark and Mindy. My mom used to make me watch it when I was a kid and said, if you want to understand about women and men, watch this show. And she used to, because she loves you too, you know, you're such an icon. On that note, you know, because Jenna Wade, you also play another an iconic character, Jenna Wade in Dallas. Which current day working actress would you cast if they decided to reboot Dallas? Or do you think you cannot reboot such a classic as Dallas?
Well, I think they did just reboot Dallas. I didn't really watch it too much. I tried to watch a couple of episodes. I didn't see the Jenna Wade character on the episodes I watched. So I'm not sure what all they did with her, but I love Linda Gray. I love Pat Duffy. I love Larry Hagman. Somebody posted a picture on Twitter of Larry and me yesterday.
I saw that.
With because Willie Nelson is a friend, and Willie would do these charity events in Dallas, probably 10 years ago. And so he would always ask Larry and me to be the co-host of them. So we'd be out there. Larry would always have those fake $100 bills with his picture on them that he would pass out. He was a really real character too.
Okay, we're gonna get, before we switch to Wizard World, because a lot of people are waiting to meet you and greet you, and nothing's stopping them, by the way, even this pandemic, because they're virtually gonna sign on. Out of all the characters that you played, what was your favorite role, you would say?
Oh, that's easy. Racine on Paper Dolls, a series I did about the fashion industry. I loved that character. First of all, they let me ad lib like nuts, and so I could do anything I wanted with her, and so it was very dark, funny. And then after we did the pilot, the writers really got me, and they started writing to my weird sense of humor, and so that was my favorite. It was so well written. The cast was great. It was Lloyd Bridges and Dak Rambo and Jennifer Warren and Brenda Vaccaro and Nicolette Sheridan as a child and Terry Farrell as a child. And, we had just wonderful, wonderful cast people on it. And it was a great show. We happened to get caught in that time when we kept getting preempted. It was an election year. I think it was 84. So we kept getting preempted for Reagan speeches and for stuff and for political stuff. And then a new company bought ABC. And they didn't get that, they didn't understand that even though we weren't in the top 10, we were doing really well for them against a lot of odds. And people were smuggling in videotapes to France. I mean, college kids were having paper dolls and watch parties and stuff. I mean, this is before everything, before you could just watch anything anytime. And so I was in shock because they just, threw out the baby with the bathwater, but they just canceled a ton of stuff across the board to start over again when they bought it. So there we went. And we were notified, typical Hollywood fashion, at our Christmas party. Somebody came up partway through the evening and said, oh, by the way, when you leave tonight, go to your dressing room and clean it out because we're canceled.
Oh my God. How did that
Hollywood.
feel? I mean, on that note, because I want to talk about a little bit about cancel culture. I don't know if you're familiar with this whole cancel culture, especially with the millennial generation. People are so quick to write you off as an artist if you say the wrong thing or you do the wrong thing. When there would be shows that got canceled, I mean, how did you take it? Was it a personal thing? What's your advice to actors out there, on how to become successful without taking everything so personal?
Well, I guess because I started so young, I just got used to it. It's the way of the world, c'est la vie. Nothing lasts forever, and even no matter how long a run in a show you've got, I mean, the first thing is no matter how long a run in the show and how much everybody loves you, the minute it's canceled, you're over. And if you let yourself be over because suddenly you're just not there on the TV anymore, then you're doing yourself a great disservice. And so I've just always been very self-sufficient and just, I mean, I can't say that it doesn't hurt. Like that one hurt because I had such faith in the show and it was going so great. You know, I couldn't believe it. Like when Flamingo Road got canceled, we had already been picked up and for our third season. And I was in the limo on the way to the airport to go to New York to do PR for the new season. And this was like 2 weeks before we start shooting. And I got a call in the car phone from Entertainment Tonight asking how it felt to be canceled. That's how I found out.
Wow. I would have been hurt too. I would have been hurt
Well,
too.
so, you know, it's like, okay, turn the car around. Let's go home, guys. But it's hurtful. A lot of times like that, it's like you're just surprised because we were doing very well. And in that case, we'd already been told we were picked up. So it was, again, another change of regime at a network where they just said, oh, we don't want any soap operas on our network, so we'll just cancel that. And but we'd already been told we were picked up. I mean, everybody, including me, had gone out and bought a house on the fact that we were picked up.
Well, I
Leaves you holding the bag.
That's the other reason you're so, you know, badass and cool, and we love you because you transition with the times. Like you said, I love that you said that. Maybe the show will be canceled, but I'm not going to be canceled. I'm, you know, and I love that attitude about you. And that's why you always stay relevant, which brings us to Wizard World, which is such a huge, you know, industry, and people are waiting to come and buy tickets. By the way, you guys can go to wizardworld.com right now and buy tickets so you can meet and greet the one and only Morgan Fairchild on February 6th. Don't miss it. Don't let the pandemic get in your way because virtually they get to meet you. Talk to us about why you got involved and why is it so important to you, to your fans?
Well, you know, I just, having, again, done this so long, you start realizing that there are so many people out there that want to meet you. I mean, who knew? Who would have thought, you know, that people would actually want to meet you and talk to you and care about it. And so I started doing some of the autograph shows a few years back. And it's just kind of gratifying because people really come up and talk to you about shows that they loved and how much you meant to their mother or their family when they were watching it all together when they were kids. And you can connect with people, you know, with people. Even though I'm a loner, that's my thing. I love people. I love the stories. And I think that's one time, like sometimes my videos on that I put out on Twitter and stuff, I think that's why people like them, is because they can tell that I'm really talking to them, that I actually care about them. I care about what they're going through with the pandemic. I care about what's happening with them financially. I care about what's happening with their kids. I care about people who've lost people. You know, that's not the acting. You know, acting, there's some old Marilyn Monroe quote, you know, fame is great, but it's not where I live. And that's kind of, you know, with acting and fame, you know, it's fun, it's great. Sometimes it's exhausting, but it's not where I live. You know, I live in this world trying to help. That's why I'm working with all these Zoom groups and trying to do different things, raising money for charities, raising money to feed people, trying to raise money for restaurant workers that are out of work and things like that. And so, you know, just trying to even the playing field, trying to make life not so hard for people, because I was always very depressed. I fought depression all my life. And I know how that feels. And so I don't want anybody to ever be down on themselves. I don't want people to think it's them, if, you know, when it's not. I just, people are going through so much right now that I see on my Instagram and on my Twitter of feeling like failures, feeling like they didn't do something right, feeling, you know, that something went wrong, or how are we ever going to get out of this? And that's why I keep trying to put stuff out on wear your mask, you know, be careful, don't go out, don't go party, don't do things. The only way we get out of this is we get the pandemic under control and then we get the economy back. That's how it works, guys. And that it's not your fault. It's not your fault. So don't kick yourself. It's not your fault. And don't be scared. One of my favorite, I'm bastardizing Thoreau, but, you know, it is not a characteristic of desperation is not a characteristic of wisdom. And that's gotten me through a lot of stuff over the years.
That is such a great quote, because I got to tell you, first and foremost, this podcast is about mental health. And, coming from a mental health community, I've suffered through depression and anxiety like you. And it helps to know that we're not alone. And it helps to know that an artist like yourself, who's super talented, goes through those hard days too. That's why, which brings me to my, next question. You're still able to get ready and show up and be with your fans at Wizard World. And now you have fanroomlive.com, which is even, February 21st, the fans get to meet you live in real time, as if you were at a theater, as if you were at a concert, or a book signing. They get to meet you, ask you one-on-one questions on fanroomlive.com. By the way, you guys can get your tickets now to meet and greet, see Morgan Fairchild yourself side by side, ask her any questions. Of course, they have to be appropriate, but you get to do that. And,
keep it clean, guys.
Keep it clean. What inspires you to show up? Sometimes I don't want to show up for myself or for my listeners, because I go through this disease that we all are trying to battle through. Talk to us about that, and talk to us about why you decided to get involved with Fan Room Live specifically.
Well, especially appropriate right now, as what we've just been talking about, is people feeling isolated, depressed, lonely, and that sometimes like nobody cares what happens to them. And I've always found when I do these events, when I was doing them in person, that the fan room, the chat room, where people would just like a town hall thing come in and ask you, which is what the fan room event is, you get the most interesting, odd questions about shows you'd forgotten you ever did, or different interviews you forgot you ever did.
You're like, don't remind me. No,
yeah. Okay. What year was that? What was the name of that? Because as you know, they change the names of some things. You shoot it under one title, and then it comes out later on video as some whole other title, and you don't know what they're talking about. But again, it's being able to reach out. When I was growing up, I had a mentor in the theater named Larry O'Dwyer. And you've probably never heard of Larry O'Dwyer. He was a wonderful theater actor. And when people used to say to me, who are the most fabulous people you've ever worked with? Robin Williams and Larry O'Dwyer. And Larry O'Dwyer was every bit as good as Robin Williams. It's just he did theater and he didn't get a break. But he was every bit as good. And when I would do shows with him when I was a kid, because he ad-libbed like mad. I mean, it was like Robin. I mean, he would ad-lib everything. That's how I learned to ad-lib. I had to go do it with him on stage, And so, but he said to me one time something that always stuck with me, that acting is reaching out in love to your fellow man.
Wow.
And that is what I try to do through the acting, but also through the Twitter, through the Instagram, through the different things, again, to let people know that they are not alone, and that somebody is thinking about them, and that somebody cares about them. And I do. And I like I said, I don't have kids. I'm not saddled with a lot of the issues that some people are having. I mean, I know friends who are getting divorces because they couldn't stand being cooped up together 24/7. So I have that advantage. But somebody, one time when I did one of my videos recently, they said something about, what do you know? You multimillionaire actors. And I'm saying, honey, I ain't a multimillionaire. I haven't had a series on in years. But also I said,
my shoes, right? Like you haven't walked.
Yes,
in my
exactly.
Shoes
You have no idea what I've gone through, and I have no idea what you've gone through. And I'm not sitting in judgment of you. And so, that kind of, because I've had, a lot of not great things happen in the last 4 years. I had mold at my house. I had to sell my house for a lot less than it was worth. I got very sick from mold. I blew up like a balloon. I was going around all over the country to endocrinologists and all kinds of doctors trying to figure out why I kept gaining weight. And I finally found out it's black mold. And my boyfriend got sick from it too, so it's not all fun and games. It's not all, sunglasses and autographs, but you get through it, you get up in the morning and you decide you're going to get through it. And I love their old Abraham Lincoln quote, I find that a man is generally about as happy as he makes up his mind to be.
I love that. You know what?
Yeah.
It's amazing how because like you said, I think the hardest job in this industry, correct me if I'm wrong, is staying relevant. And I think you've done such a great job at keeping these character roles on screen, but then Morgan Fairchild, the brand, the empire off screen, the lifestyle brand, I would call it. What goes behind that? How do you, there's a difference between being a successful full-time actor, and sometimes, like you said, your coach, your mentor, Larry, wasn't credited enough, wasn't hyped enough. He, as much as other people. What's the secret, you would say, to your success, to keep being relevant and out there and keep working as a full-time actress?
Well, a couple of things. Don't take yourself too seriously. And it's like when they offered me the part on Friends to play Chandler's mom. And a lot of my friends were saying, oh, my God, you shouldn't do that. You're not old enough to be that guy's mother. And I said, hey, you have to make that transition at some time. And I liked the show. The show was not a big hit yet when they offered it to me. And I liked the ensemble work. I think the kids are all really good. And so I'm going to do it. And who knew? Who knew that it would have such legs and it would go on so far? But again, it was like not saying, oh, I can't do that because I don't want to play older women. Hey, you get to be older. What are you going to do? You're going to go with the times, don't hang on to being a kid. So don't take yourself too seriously. And then also just get up every day and work. Just get up every day and put one foot in front of the other. That's, the main thing that's gotten me through all kinds of crazy stuff, divorce, moves, shows being canceled, boyfriend's being canceled, it's like,
I love that.
And mold and losing everything. I mean, I had to lose, 3/4 of my wardrobe, all my books, all my paintings. I mean, not all my painting, but anything with paper, anything with leather, anything clothes, anything with suede. I mean, almost everything. I lost almost everything about 3 or 4 years ago, almost everything. And you start over. What are you going to do? You start over. Well, it's stuff, stuff is not the important stuff, it's just stuff. So you start over. But I did lose my first copies of The Coming Plague and The Great Influenza.
Well, before we wrap up, I want to ask you one last question that all the listeners want to know. And if you don't mind, Morgan, we're going to have you do a soundbite for iHeartRadio to check out the show, and then we'll let you go because I know you're really busy. What inspires you behind your acting? Because you are such a phenomenal actress. You do say you love ad-libbing. I love that part of acting too. Improv, it's my favorite. What inspires you behind acting?
Behind it?
Like, why did you just decide to become an actress? What goes behind the character roles when you decide to play these characters? What inspires you when you're thinking about the roles?
Well, to play bad guys, I discovered I had a great advantage. In that I don't care if you love me. Most actors want desperately to be loved, and I don't care if the audience loves me. And so that lets me play bad guys. But also the humor, that I can inject the humor into a lot of the bad guys. And then it becomes the audience loves and hates you. They hate you, but they kind of like you too.
The perfect combo.
They wait to see what you're going to say.
That's a great answer.
So that's kind of,
I love that. Well, Morgan, thank you so much for coming on the Chanel in the City podcast. You are amazing. We can't wait to check you out on Wizard World. Make sure you follow at Wizard World on Instagram and wizardworld.com to book your tickets February 6th to meet and greet the amazing Morgan Fairchild, and fanroomlive.com on February 21st if you miss out, because it's going to be sold out February 6th, I heard. Fanroomlive.com if you want to ask Morgan personal questions and any questions you've ever had and take a picture with her. Morgan, thank you so much. It's been an honor. I am so humbled and inspired by you.
Oh, you're so kind. Thank you. I appreciate it. And I appreciate your interest, and I appreciate that the fans are even interested. I've been doing this so long, you just don't know if people still care.
Oh, they
so
love,
it's always
trust
nice.
me, I'm telling you, I've gotten phone calls. I've told Jeff, I'm telling Mike now, people are dying to meet you. I mean, more than most celebrities I've even mentioned. It's I'm not just telling you that to make you feel better. I'm genuinely saying it. And it's just been such an honor.
Oh, thank you.
Where can people follow you, by the way?
Oh, on Twitter, I'm at Morg Fair, MORGFAIR, the first 4 letters of each name. And I did that on Instagram too, but then I didn't do it for a while, and I forgot my password. So I had to I had to create a new one. So it's Morgan Fairchild 1 on Instagram. Hi, this is Morgan Fairchild, and I hope you'll watch me with Chanel Omari on Chanel in the City podcast coming up.